Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the New Britain Township Supervisors Meeting, Budget Workshop Session. I call the meeting to order. Would you please all stand with me and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I review the Board of Supervisors met in executive session to discuss personnel and litigation matters. Agenda item number 4, Township Manager Budget Overview.
Thank you. Welcome to the 2025 budget process. This year, I'm not privy to what you did in the past. This is my first budget working with this board and this group. And we're changing things up slightly to try and make the budget more informative and easier to read and use. So I just want to go over the process a little bit. Today, we're going to listen to the department heads, ask about or describe their request, the department request, their operating budget, and also their capital. Not much has changed in their operating budgets, but there's a couple little things in there. The format of the budget has changed from prior years. As you can see now, we add a lot of historical data to show prior years' cost. And we'll do the same thing on the revenue side to kind of give you an idea of what we've been doing in the past and how we're tracking for the future or for 2025. My experience has always been the past is a really good indicator of where you're going to be. Now, obviously, cost increase, but it gives us an idea of what we can do and where we should be. One of the things you'll notice is the big ticket items and the one-offs have been taken out of the general fund. We're going to do them all through their respective capital funds. Now, if that requires a transfer from one of the funds to the other, if we need to transfer money to capital fund from the general fund, we'll show transfer capital fund as an expenditure in the general fund, and then we'll show it as a revenue coming in the capital. And the reason to do that is because when you look at our budget, in my experience, using the past historical information, we'll see these large differences. And what we want to try and do is just compare year to year what we're spending on the same things. I don't like to see big swings in the general fund or in the park and rec fund. They should be fairly constant. There should be, slow growth, but it should be constant. The way I view it is the general fund and the park and rec fund are your everyday expense funds. It's kind of like paying your bills at home. It's your electric bill, it's your mortgage, it's your, you just look at it that way. The capital funds for those are more like your wish list. It's like, am I going on vacation? It's like it's your discretionary spending for the lack of a better term. And I'd rather keep them separate so we can track our everyday expenses more accurately. So you'll notice that this year and last year and previous years, there were reasons to do that, like the ARPA funds and whatnot. But we'll be handling that a little bit different, spending all the big money out of the capital fund. There are some assumptions that we've already built into the expense side. We know that our medical and dental insurance is about a 7% increase. We've already included that in this, and that's an estimate from Divot. That may be a little lower. We'll know actually in October, I think they said. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll get a better handle on that in October. And we're only going to focus today on expenditures. Revenues, we'll get a better idea after September 30, where we're at year to date and projection for the end of the year. And that'll be the next set of information that comes out as the revenue. So with that, I'm going to let the department head start. Any questions from the board at this point? No. And if you're not happy with the way we're doing this, tell me. You know, this is just the way I've done them in the past. And it's just what I know, but it doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. It's just how I know to do it. So with that, I'm gonna let the chief go first and give an overview of his general fund expenditures and then talk about his capital request.
Thanks, Dan. So the general fund, there isn't much of a change. There were a couple things that.
Hey, 1 second, I'm sorry. It's page 2. And it's the 410s. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so one of the things that I kind of noticed here, I got a question about, is, like computer supplies. It's zeroed out, but then it says capital cost in Fund 18. But I don't see anything in Fund 18.
We haven't populated that yet. I know.
So, you'll see some increases with the traffic counter. What we want to do this year or next year is to better support our signboards and things like that, is to pay for the cloud fee service that, helps us gather the data from those signs a little easier. It also, kind of like an insurance policy on them, because it comes with the camera system, GPS system, and everything. If somebody were to take the sign again, like we had this year, so we wanted to add the traffic cloud to those. So that's why there's an increase in that line item for the general fund.
Chief, so
Yes.
then would that be basically what that line item would be going forward? Is that a recurring fee?
That would be a recurring fee, yes. And the other fees that are in that line item include our calibrations for our speed timing devices and our speedometers in the vehicles. So we kind of have that all tied together now. Uniforms and vests is another area that we're increasing this next year, based on, we have to replace at least 7 officers' body armor. So, and body armor actually is, for some reason, increased 3 times this year alone. We're averaging about $1,250 per officer for body armor. We did apply for the Justice Department Bulletproof Vest Partnership, which would be a 50% reimbursement on a certain cost of a vest. So it's not really based on the total cost of the vest. It's whatever the Department of Justice says that should cost. So we can get some money back for that.
Thank you.
Community policing service supplies, we earlier this year, we had the Victim Services Unit come in from Central Bucks Regional Police Department. They had asked that we basically support them with $5,000 if we do join them. So we have a placeholder for the $5,000 to put towards that in the community policing service supplies. Legal expenses also a slight increase. In order to continue accreditation, we'll continue having consultants assist us with the proofs and things on a yearly basis. So that fees in there, as well as we will have to conduct promotional exams sometime next year, due to the fact that we have 2 corporals that are in the drop, and they'll be leaving 2026. So we want to be prepared to replace them with promotional exams. So that's something else we'll have consultants help us with. Moving on to page 3. The equipment purchases, we increased that. Well, one of the things that covers is the body worn camera, sorry, the in-car cameras are in that. And we have a grant that basically for $41,000 from PCCD. So, but we do have to budget the second payment of the in-car camera systems. That'll be the final payment. That agreement is for 5 years. So we won't have an expense for body worn, well, I shouldn't say body worn, for in-car camera systems for another 3 years after that. And well, the other thing that we added to that is we want to endeavor on a community relations building idea of getting a bicycle tricycle. So basically it's a bike, it comes with like an ice cream freezer thing in the front. And so we can get to different neighborhoods and have ice cream with the kids and the residents, so you're gonna guess that around. And it was those two over there, they had some other ideas about, so.
So is that in part of the equipment?
Yeah, that's part of the minor, or part of the equipment purchase, okay? And it's in that, budgeted in that line right.
I think Kristen volunteered, but no.
Yeah,
That's bigger idea. We were for the trolley, not the truck.
do you have any questions on my general expenses? All right, for capital expenses, for the capital plan for 2025, we always look at replacing vehicles. So we've been averaging replacing 2 vehicles per year. Next year, the vehicles that based on a 5-year plan that we have, the next 2 vehicles to be replaced would be the traffic vehicle, the Ford heavy duty utility truck that carries the scales and things like that. For traffic enforcement and part of the mix app detail as well. So that truck is one of the older vehicles in the fleet, where it could replace that. We're looking at about $90,000 for the vehicle and the upfitting, which would include the rear having all the slides and things like that to put the scales in, the other equipment that vehicle carries. That vehicle, however, could be repurposed. The vehicle that being replaced could be repurposed for public works. Talk to Ryan. It's still in good running condition. They could use it as one of their vehicles. The next vehicle will be my vehicle, the administrative vehicle. We're looking at that would be about $70,000 to replace. Both of these vehicles, the mileage on them is good. They'll probably hit. The truck is over 60,000 miles. I think 65,000 miles. My vehicle's over 55,000 miles. However, the age of the vehicles is what's starting to become a concern, and that's why we want to try to replace them. And that my vehicle could be repurposed as a detective vehicle or another administrative vehicle, and try to get rid of some of the cars that we have, the Taurus or the other unmarked vehicle that we have.
What are the ages of the truck in your vehicle?
My vehicle is a 2017, and the truck is a 2016. I believe it was.
And is the truck part of the everyday fleet? Like, is it one of the patrol cars kind of thing, or is it more a lower level?
So it's assigned to Officer Zelensky. So he works Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. So that's his vehicle. He drives that every day. So we have that's one of the things we have on the capital plan, or the wheel load weigher scales. They're used to check the weights of trucks based on roadway restrictions. We have certain weights that trucks are permitted to travel. Plus, when there's a lot that goes into truck inspections, that the scales are used to determine whether or not the truck's in compliance with weight restrictions. And that's the third item on our capital plan request. is to, purchase 2 additional, scales. The scales that we currently have are probably at least 20 years old. So it's time to think about, replacing them, and getting new scales. The 4th item on there is a message board surveillance trailer. So one of the things this is kind of a multi-purpose, piece of equipment. It's a message board. It also comes with a telescoping, mast, basically, that you put a camera on. Our thoughts for this piece of equipment would be to utilize it not only for, messaging, whether we have events or road closures, or if we're having, it has the capabilities of having a speed, device on it, just like our speed boards. It can be deployed on the roadway, but one of the things we also were contemplating with this is putting it in, the shopping center by Giant and, Fine Wine and Spirits, because those are 2 areas that we have our most retail thefts from. They don't have that great of camera systems in the stores themselves. So occasionally deploying this to that area, with the camera system would act as a deterrent, but it also help us gather, intelligence information or possibly video, or if we do have, retail thefts in that area. When we're still looking into this, it's, one of the companies that's, they have a, ALPR, device that can be added to this trailer. The company, however, they get the ALPRs from, says you have to buy 5 of them at a time. Obviously, you only need 1. It's an automatic license plate reader. So that would help us in investigations, especially if we put it out, on the side of the road. We'll get information on the different vehicles that are in the area, if we have any thefts in that area. So if we don't go with the trailer, we may look into stationary license plate readers, for the intersection of County Line and Butler, which would be a similar cost over a 5-year period.
I do have one question. We have capital plan expenses, but I don't have in front of me the amount in our capital.
We haven't populated, the reason we wanted to present to the board the wish list.
Okay.
And then once, we will then populate the capital plan with this information, and then you can see the cost. And the board at our next workshop meeting will go through and say, yay, nay, okay.
Okay, so whether,
I just wanted to give you the opportunity to hear it, digest it, and once we see how it all fits together, then you can
Okay.
make the decisions. Because it's all part of the whole.
For the message board trailer, yes, that includes purchasing a LPR for the sign. I haven't heard back from the distributor or the salesperson. He said he was gonna try to work to see if they could just get 1 for us. If not, there's some other workarounds, that we're considering.
This would be relatively.
Yeah, the cost is relatively.
does it also come with just a normal camera?
So that's the other piece of equipment that they're offering, is that they have one that has a camera on it. So we're seeing if that will work with the sign. Then the last item on the capital plan for the police department is a portable police radio. Obviously, we added Officer Kilroy earlier this month. We're currently borrowing a radio from the county communications. In discussions with them, I know I mentioned to the board before where our radios are aging and will need to be replaced soon. However, the radio repair guys are under the impression that, you know, our radios still have, some, life left to them, I guess you could say. They're actually, the county has recently purchased batteries for all the radios in the county to distribute to the police departments. And they'll start discussions in the next year or two on what the replacement plan will be for our current radios. However, the radio that we're borrowing, they said is temporary, so we need to purchase a radio for Officer Kilroy.
Which means they may change the entire system and.
Well, that's what they're looking at, you know, when I talked to the radio repair about what radio to buy, they mentioned, you know, that we can still get our current radio and it'll be warranted for 7 years. So with the newer radios, you're looking at, you have to buy new chargers. It's all different, right? The chargers are different, the batteries are different. They also come with a subscription fee because they have LTE connection. So, you know, that's kind of the way of the future for police emergency communications is, you know, finding other networks to support. You know, if one network goes down, you have a backup network, you have more connectivity, things like that. So the radios are going to get more expensive, but not only that, they're going to come with, you know, subscription fees that we're going to have to make. So we don't want to go there yet. You know, I think that's what we're trying to explore, what's going to be the best way for Bucks County to make sure all the emergency services are connected.
Is the county at all looking at exploring that?
Yes, there are currently, we have what they call a, I forget what the committee's called, but
There's always a committee.
yeah, so they have a committee and they meet, the chiefs of police and meet with the different emergency, communication center. And then they present to the commissioners basically things that they feel the county needs to focus on. So that's the police department's request. For 2025.
Oh, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief, and
All right,
enjoy the rest of your day.
I'll try.
Bill,
Okay,
Bill's on page 7.
much simpler. So after discussions with Kristen and looking over the budget, we have decided pretty much to keep most of our budget items the same as it was last year, minimal increases. The only difference is we have split the operating costs between 3 separate parks. So it's not just park expenditures, now it's specifically West Branch Park, Highland Park, and North Branch Park, which basically all of the things, but that's going to include the playground mulch, flower bed mulching, mutt mitts. So when we order them, we'll have to decide, I can put the line items on each different one. So I guess, so we can start to look at how much is actually going to each park. And really, it's basically simple. Most of our stuff is a lot of maintenance, and we try to upkeep. Mutt mitts are an expense. And like I said, just the routine maintenance of the ball fields, infield mix, and whatever else we got to make repair throughout the year. We have not yet.
That's on zero. Second one.
Common property development, but
Yeah.
no expenses,
Right.
they're gonna need to mow the lawn.
Well, that's part of our routine maintenance,
Oh, okay.
as far as daily, routine maintenance and facilities maintenance.
We will add the Coleman property in. Here, one of the interesting things with our open space fund is we can pay for maintenance and improvements to park land that we purchased through the open space fund. But only that land. We can't pay for improvements to North Branch or it's only, so that will end up in the open space. Yeah, we'll track it there. We need to spend some of that money.
Okay, any other questions or, I mean, I thought it's basically simple. It's pretty much what it was last year. Nothing, I don't see any increase. The only thing that might increase is the fertilization. But he's been pretty regular with keeping that cost down. We just had our full application done. I think it's $5,000 per application. So, and as far as our mulch, it hasn't changed in the past 2 years. I think it's still $23 a yard, which if we go and get multiple, well, if we get multiple, it's cheaper if we get more than 16, so
Yeah.
2 trucks up there, but yeah, that's our biggest expenses, you know, and then whatever we see it, what I like to do at the end of the year, see how much I actually has to, I can have something to purchase the materials then to work on something over the winter. For instance, something with the ball fields when they're not using them, or the borders, or add stone here, or whatever we might need. I know there's projects, I have a project set up for one of the ball fields for drainage issues that we've had just from being played on, constantly drugged. They just need constant maintenance, so. Nothing major in that respect as far as our primary budget. Capital plan. We get put in for 3 mowers. This year we saw a lot of breakdowns. We had a lot of downtime. Each individual one, whether it be hydraulic motors, whether it be the one mower we have just waiting for parts for it, they're always back ordered. It's like 3 months. We actually just sent out the one motor just to get overhauled instead of waiting for a new one, because it just takes so long. The parts aren't just readily available. We want to go with a different brand. And I think replacing them now, we can still keep one as a spare. And the other 2 are still, could go on municipal and still bring something. Because that's a big part of it. When we're in full season, we need all 3 going just to keep up and not fall behind.
What's the ages of those ones?
Well, the ones probably 2 of them are about 6 years old. The oldest one is probably 8.
So that's that they're working on.
I would say every 5 years we start looking at replacing them. So we're in that, I would call it the sweet zone. We can still get something for them and they're not going to break down on us. You know, the parts are just not gonna, I mean, because we're using them hours, and I mean, that amount of hours we've done weekly during the season is a lot. Obviously, the North Branch rear parking lot, we all know what that looks like. The rotting telephone poles, trying to get replacement ones is almost impossible. I talked to Pico, I talked to Enbridge when they're out replacing their poles and power. They just cut them up. They're not really interested in giving them to us. So it's just hard to get them. And just as far as we just did the basketball court and they're working on the walking trail, so the rear parking lot would be real nice to see that finished. It just adds a nicer appearance. The Highlands Park. This is, well, the roof, I'm gonna go skip over the fence replacement, go right to the roof. That's in dire need of replacement. It is our most rented park pavilion throughout the season. I'd say it's already had 8 or 9 so far this season. And that's just people who get the permit for it. So I'm telling how many people just go there and use it. There's patches on the roof. We've already patched the one because it was leaking. We did get a quote. I put that in our capital plan meeting. So I think that's with the influx of what's happening over High Point with the houses that are going up there. I think it's going to promote more activity over at that park. So it'll be nice to have that taken care of and done. Along with the fence that goes around it, the chain link fence, it looks like it's just beyond repair. So
how old's the roof on that pavilion?
that's a very good question, because I don't know, because that pavilion was there, that used to belong to the Highlands Association, that whole park. There was 2 softball fields on there that were removed just because of liability. The cracked windshields on East Schoolhouse when they were playing games. So that's not a typical rafter roof. It's almost like it's got archways with tongue and groove spanning. So it's not like there's a company I have that can do it. So, and age-wise, it's gotta be more than that, 25 years old.
So the actual structure is good, it's just the. roof
It's
that-
steel beams yeah, they're steel beams and if you get a chance to go, it's like, it's almost like an archway type of rafter that goes across and they're 12 inches thick. So visibly right now, there's no damage to them. I don't know what it's gonna look like when you take the roof off, but, we've made some repairs, like I said, here and there, but it's patched together. And that's basically what I got.
Instead of, sorry, we slipped over the fence.
Yeah,
What
that's,
the,
like I said, that's under the old chain link fence. It's been there probably just as long as the pavilion. Obviously, there needs to be some separation between the driveway or the East Schoolhouse Road and the playground pavilion area. So I had proposed doing a split rail with the concrete posts and wooden rails. Mainly, the big problem too is the company, the subcontractors that plow over at Highlands, right, Krista Court, I believe it is, right across the street. Because of the handicap accesses they have on each corner, they take their intersections, they push them straight across. So that over time has started to damage the fence. But you can look along there, there's places we've tried to repair. It would look, if we're gonna do it and make everything look nicer, that would just be a nicer appearance as we try to build it, because I just got a quote, which will be in the next capital plan for a new playground system over there. A large one, very large one,
so you're suggesting a split rail thing
yes.
that kids could pull under?
No, we could put wire on it. Yeah, we could put a wire all the way to the ground, or at least leave it enough to weed whacked under. So like we did out here,
So it's split rail.
the wire, I think I have that all in the added into the budget. Well, they're gonna become liable for it if anything happens to it. That's why I went with the concrete posts. So locust posts are obviously cheaper. I broke it down at the 2 costs. But the concrete posts are just gonna be sturdier. I mean, if a rail breaks, they're $12 a piece. That's not a big thing, but yeah, it won't look like a prison yard.
Well, that's an improvement.
Yeah,
And just so the board knows, Ryan and Bill did an inventory of the park benches and everything here at North Branch, and we're in the process of ordering replacements in this year's budget. We had some room left. So we went through it. These 2 gentlemen went through and did an inventory and said, okay, this is what we need, X, Y, and Z. And we're going ahead and doing that right now.
the storage area, we'll call it the concession stand.
The
That-
concession stand.
That is, we have,
That's it.
yeah, it is, but, biggest thing with that is there's nothing in there that's I mean, we store that's where all the 90% of our fall festival equipment is in there, and we have the well system in there, the controls for our irrigation system for the fields in there. That could be something, I think the main thing would have to be, I would like to see that berm, if we can come up with a design, remove that earthen berm that's in between the driveway, just make that an extended parking lot around the building. Which means we would have to take that lean-to off and re-roof it.
You had mentioned that was on the capital plan, but is there something we can do? Is that
It doesn't leak right now,
Right
but it's
now.
unsightly. We can take a look at that this year.
to see if we can do, just to make it look better?
So that's something we
It
could
looks
probably do
like-
in-house. I know. That's a simple roof. Yeah. Yeah, that would just be materials.
Okay,
Or that's-
we will discuss that. No, no.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You get to stay.
I get to stay.
You can leave if you want, but
Since you're sort of related to that field over there.
I'll wait. I mean, we're in the process of putting up the backboards, that's well.
Oh, if you need to get out there to do that, go ahead.
Um,
If that's all right with the board.
thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Ryan is page 4.
So as Dan stated in his opening, the overall operating really haven't changed a whole lot. The ones to note are the communication that's going up, has increased by 5,000, and that's to allow for the annual fuel management system. Tracking software. The next one is the decrease in the building maintenance from 40 to 20. That was because of the retaining wall that was built at the Public Works facility. Street signs, we decreased by 10,000. We made significant progress this year with purchasing and swapping out to the new PennDOT standards, the HIP. We increased the vehicle repairs and maintenance by 15,000. That's to allow for any unexpected repairs that may come along. I know this year we had 2 significant repairs, one to a dump truck and one to the road bank mower, which had taken us over budget this year. The other request of mine would be an additional $100,000 for in-house paving. That would be for the Public Works crew to scratch and do base repairs on roads mainly north and south of Lake Helena. And then we also added a roadway curb and sidewalk fund for 20,000, which is a good start.
I'm sorry, what do you like? One?
Roadway curb and sidewalk.
That's 438, 883.
And that would be to maintain any curb or sidewalk that abuts township property. And we could even throw any half ramps in that. So cheap. I believe as far as the general operating expense, those were the only major things to note. I don't know if you guys have any questions about that. As for the capital plan, number 1, replace the frame rails on the dump truck. Approximately $62,000. It would be done on a 2004 Mack dump truck, which we have previously replaced the body back in 2020. The truck is in good shape still and only has 21 or 22,000 miles on it. A new truck, a new Mack 10-wheeler would probably cost $325,000. So I think doing the frame rails should extend the life of that vehicle by at least another 10-15 years. Number 2 is the asphalt hot box, the recycler. I know some of you had installed that at the PSAT conference, I believe.
I didn't.
You mean out in that big toy playground that's
Yeah.
outside in the parking lot? I was gonna kick out. I know it's toy playground.
That's before.
So this, when you're taking up the asphalt and
So that piece of machinery there will allow us to do more permanent repairs rather than cold patching throughout the winter months. You would essentially get a load of blacktop, let it harden, and you would break it up, put it in this machine, and it would reheat it to a pliable material. So you could do more permanent repairs rather than cold patch, which obviously over time flows out of the holes.
So then you would go out and whatever potholes are out there, you would take that machine
We would patch with that versus the patch
on township.
on touch.
Yeah.
Yes. Number 3, the skid steer track replacement. That's just a maintenance item, honestly. The tracks are a wearable part. And they get chewed up, so they need to be replaced every so often.
Oh, that seems like it just.
3 years old.
Is that-
Yes, it is very, very useful and used quite frequently.
So it's a high use item, and would that track replacement become a standard maintenance thing, maybe every 2 years or so?
I would say 3 to 5 years potentially. And then the last thing on the list is a side tilt bucket for the new backhoe that we purchased. Rather than your front and back tilt, it has a hydraulic side tilt. We would have to choose either left or right, but it would be very handy for use along walking trails or roadways, where you don't have to basically square up with the ditch. You can drive with traffic and dump to the side. The price tag that is on that for 20,000 is based off a brand new one. They do have demos, we have done, which I want to say is probably half that cost, but I'm still waiting on a quote for that. And that is all that I have for the capital plan. You got any other questions?
Liquid fuels.
That was my pipe dream.
Hey,
So I had also requested.
that is page 10 of
that
liquid
is
fuels.
page 10.
Yes.
So I had also had a discussion with Dan about adding $300,000 on top of whatever we get for liquid fuels. To essentially beef up our annual. Basically allowing us to do more than 1 mile a year. Fully understanding that next year is probably a pipe dream, but just wanting to present it to you that moving forward, we should seriously entertain the thought of adding more money into the liquid fuels funds so that we can do 3 miles of road a year.
I was gonna say how much more with that, so that would basically triple what we're doing. Is that,
As far as distance, yes,
is that 300 per year?
yes.
One of the things we will look at is drawing some of the fund balance down in liquid fuels to increase our road paving. There is fair amount of fund balance right now sitting there, and it's restricted for road paving. And the reason you build that up is for, you can buy equipment out of it if it's an emergency, say a truck goes, right? And we can go get a piece of equipment out of, in the wintertime. You can do an emergency purchase. Or if we have an extremely difficult winter, which we haven't had since 2013. You know what? In my world, we have to plan for it, though. We have to. I know, but we have to, and that's one of the reasons you do build that fund balance in liquid fuels. We have to be cognizant of it. So, again, so that's the truth. We have to look at that. And again, when the fund balance, when does it become too much? And when should we start drawing it? And we'll take a look at that. I want to have enough there that we can handle emergencies and be prepared, but also it shouldn't be 100% of what we receive each year from liquid fuels. Because eventually PennDOT will say you need to spend some of that.
I would also like to say that I would like to get back. In certain areas, I'm not saying main roads like Upper State Road or East Schoolhouse, but roads north and south of the lake. That's what it should be. So I would like to incorporate that moving forward, if possible.
What's the approximate cost differential between paving and
You can get a lot farther with tar and chip. Per square yard, you're probably looking at a third of the cost.
And what's its length? What's its used lifespan?
I would say 5 to 10 years, roughly.
On a non-high traffic road?
I was gonna say, depending on the travel of the road, I mean, you could probably get 10 years.
And that would help stretch our money to pay
Correct.
more roads that might need it.
Yes, to do maintenance on more roads, yes.
How would that, not the hot box, work on the tar and chip roads?
Same fashion,
Mhm.
you would still be able to patch. It's blacktop, so you would still be able to use that on those roads.
So you're a proponent of the tar and chip. I know they use that a lot in rural areas in Europe and instead work on. Why did prior management want to get away from it?
They wanted us to pave more roads. And instead of doing just general maintenance like the tar and chip, they wanted us to pave with blacktop. Correct.
Just damn sure.
Hello? You asked why prior managers wanted to get away. It is, of all the applications you'll do, it's the one that causes the most headaches for us inside. Now, for you guys outside, I appreciate that, Ron. But
Depends on the road that you are.
depends on the road, depends on when it's put down, the temperature. It's if it's too hot, it doesn't set. We'll get calls constantly, cars are damaged by tars up on the side of their cars. If it's anywhere near a resident, they say, we're not good enough to get our road paved. You're gonna shortcut us. So, I mean, it's something we can look at. I'm not saying no. It's not up to me to say no, it's up to you to say yes or no. But I will tell you from experience that there are obviously places you don't do it. You will get complaints no matter where you do it. Because residents will drive over it and they hear it because it takes a while to settle. It takes a while for all the chips to get in and get pushed to the side. And they'll hear that hitting their car and not be happy. That's the downside from our side. Now, again, from his side, it gets him further treatment area. And I understand that completely, but I'm just trying to balance those scales for you a little bit. So he doesn't like me right now.
If it's applicable in any of our.
I would, if the board were to choose to do something, I would pick a test area and a small area for the first year and monitor, see what we get. See what kind of calls and complaints we do get, if we get them. But it has to be a road that is out there. You don't want it near any residents, just because I've heard, I dealt with it in a town I managed before they did it, and I was just like, the headaches were just unbelievable.
Did you schoolhouse road with it? Yeah. Get that treatment every couple of years.
That's that we've done Torrance for a number of years.
Is this?
on it, mainly north and south of the lake. Now, like Stephanie had just mentioned, there are other roads that were done over time, just as a simple maintenance factor to keep it held together.
Yeah, then we got, since then, but yeah.
Now, can we do that? Or does that also have to be?
That's contracted out.
So my question is this an area where better communication for residents or a future upgraded website or other new?
I don't think it would matter. It's one of those things where you can tell people it's gonna happen. But I still don't think when you're the person driving down the street and you have a white car and you look out and you see all these little black tar marks on the side of your car, I don't care how much we communicated with somebody. They're not gonna be happy. Now, again, it doesn't always happen, but that is the downside of it. Not if you lived on it.
They just hate it.
And the weather conditions.
I was gonna say,
Yeah,
And traffic.
yep, it can't be hot, it can't be, no, but it has to be warm enough where it'll set. And, you know, there's a window, but it just. Yeah, but if you live, if it's, yeah,
Well, Bob,
Yeah.
need traffic.
I would bet, safe bet, be 2 weeks from the time.
yeah. And that's, I appreciate the fact that they've done it in areas for years and years and years. And I guess, you know, people become accustomed to it, but if you do something new like that, or something that is it's gonna cause, if you think your phone rings now. The other thing, and not to get off that subject, but I do with paving. I want to talk about the curbs and sidewalk, the curbing repairs that we currently do as part of our paving. I think personally that the township should not be involved in curb repairs of a homeowner's property. We, right now, we'll notify the people that the road's gonna be repaired or repaved. And you have sections of curbing that needs to be replaced. And you do it by X date, or we're gonna do it. I think that in all the years that I've been a manager, I've never seen that done in any of the towns I've been in. And I think it opens us up to questions from the taxpayers. We're basically fronting the cost for somebody's curb repair until, if they don't do it and we do it, until they decide to pay. If they don't pay, we end up liening the property. And we don't get that lien settled until they sell it. I don't see, and I'll use this example, and don't take any of this personally, but say Stephanie gets a letter, Bill gets a letter, and Cynthia gets a letter. Stephanie says, well, I'm gonna get my curb fixed. I'm gonna hire my own contractor to do it. Okay. She does it, she pays for it. Bill says, I get a letter, but I'm gonna let the township fix it, and then I'll pay them. Cynthia gets a letter, said, I'm not gonna do a thing. Township pays it, but I'm not gonna pay. So Bill and Stephanie basically did what they were supposed to, but they're also carrying the costs for Cynthia not doing what she was supposed to. Sorry, Cynthia. I said, don't take it personally. I'm just using examples. And so the other taxpayers are carrying that cost. And I know that the theory is that when you pave a road, you like to have all the curbs perfect. But when we do UNO inspections for houses, when they get resold, that is part of the inspection, is that they need to fix their curbs and their sidewalks. We don't get involved with the sidewalks, but when we're doing the roads, but the curbs we do, that it's their it's a homeowner's responsibility. I just don't know if it's the right thing to do to have every taxpayer in New Britain carry that cost for somebody who just basically flouts the system.
For 20 or 30 years.
Exactly. So I would personally, and I know Ryan agrees with me, I would like us to get out of doing that. Now, when we go to pave the roads, we send a letter to the homeowners. We'll still go out and do the curb inspection. We'll send a letter to them. We're going to pave your road next year. You have curb repairs that need to be done. It's your responsibility to get them done before and just leave it at that.
And if they don't, just pay it anyway.
Just pave it anyway.
And any of those inspections and reports are then put on the tax parcel homeowners.
It goes in their property
On
file.
their file, so that when it does get sold and you need to do it.
And they will be,
come
yeah,
up, and so it won't get lost.
no,
That information will stay at the house.
Yeah.
The property. So we would have to change ordinance.
yeah, I believe so. And we can, if the board is so inclined, then we can handle the mechanics of it. You know, we'll start that process of handle, but it's more or less. I just think that it's something that, while we've done it in the past, just like we did when we're not doing it anymore at the curb spraying. Just because we did it before doesn't mean we have to do it again. I would just think that it would make Ryan's life a whole lot easier, and it's the fair thing for the rest of the taxpayers in the township not to cover people's costs. Now, obviously, you know, people don't pay their taxes, but that, you know, that happens a lot quicker. Those properties get leaned whole lot, and that's resolved
They
with,
go for sheriff sale.
with-
We're not-
within 2 to 3
we're
years.
agree with
That,
We have no control.
right, and then usually that's because the school taxes are the ones that the school taxes drive the sheriff sales and all that. So those things get resolved a whole lot quicker than carrying a lien on the property for 15, 20, 30 years. So,
Unless we go ahead.
Yeah.
Which we don't want to do.
no, exactly. We're not gonna do a sheriff sale for a lien on a property for $100 or like $1,800 or whatever. That's not what we do.
So now I want to hear from. Brian, he's usually done.
So I was vetoed by previous management with my stance on the whole current thing. I felt as if we should be able to go in and do whatever road work necessary without binding the homeowner with added expenses. But it was previous management that told me that, no, if we're doing a road, we need to do dirt.
And you don't feel that way.
No, I don't.
And I can honestly say, I've been in the business 32 years. This is the first time I ever heard it. I've never run into it. I've never heard it from any of my other, you know, manager buddies, friends, and, you know, neighboring towns. It's just never, I'm shocked by it. And even with, like, towns I lived in, they don't do that.
And so opening a road, if we pave the road, homeowner doesn't do it, then comes to sell it, they need to do it. We have a very good stringent opening of road.
That was the argument from previous management was, well, you're gonna go in and pave a road and then somebody's gonna come back and dig it up. But we have the road opening permit with specific instructions on backfill that it would need to be replaced as previous.
Yeah.
Needs to come
The
to
specs are up to standard. There are specs that lay out how you have to and roads get opened all the time. And, you know, it used to drive me crazy. We pave a road and then like the following year Aqua would come in and open the road. And you try and tell them in advance that, you know, you got any projects we're going to be done, but it still, it happens. It's a fact. So you can't get around it. The key is to make sure you have a good road opening permit that calls for the specs to do the repair, and those specs are followed, and we do. So that's my recommendation to the board.
Be in favor. Make a motion.
Well, actually, we don't, it is a public meeting and you can.
We can.
Yes, well, and it will, we'll have to go through the mechanics, and if it was put in by ordinance, we'll have to get an ordinance drafted, and you can authorize it to be advertised, the normal mechanics for an ordinance. But we'll know going into 25, we'll have that, we'll start that process now. But we know going into 25 that we're not going to do that, that will be, so.
So do we need?
No, if you've just given me direction, we can note it, there will be minutes. Okay.
It doesn't affect me at all, since I don't have any council roads.
But.
Thank you, we appreciate it. Thank you.
So. Will it affect next year's road? project?
Yes, it will.
Yeah, it would affect next.
Okay. so
Yeah.
that's-
We already notified the people.
They were notified previously of the road program and deficiencies. But we can revise the next letter going out.
Just say what the process would be.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We got a little off track with the budget, but it actually is, it is part of, because one of the things we have to put in the budget is a cost for that, because we can't, it's a guess each year how many people are gonna actually follow the rules.
To manage it.
Yeah.
To-
So now that helps us in the budget process to take that portion out, so. All right, Ryan, you have anything else, or?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Township manager.
Yes, we have a few things in the capital. And actually, in the admin, one of the things I want to tell you is what we've done, and you may notice this, is we've kind of we've taken the clerical staff and put them where they belong in the line items. Yeah. I'm sorry. Mine's all messed up. I got it all out of order here. I think we start on 1. Right, yeah, I do have page 1. You'll see that, yes. Just to give you an example, 402.0 financial administrator, or right below that, salary finance, 402.130. That is Kristen and Kim. It's not like Kristen got this giant raise. Sorry, Kristen.
That we know nothing about.
Right, no, and that's the other thing, we have put money in the budget already for salary increases. It's buried in here, it's here, so we don't have to, it's like, okay, now what are we gonna do? When we're putting it together, we put the money in, and when we decide what those numbers will be, then we'll fine tune that number. But we've gone and done that for each of the departments. Alex is now with me. And we actually had the line item for the additional person with me, although, and again, we talked about this a little bit. When we're getting ready to get the budget finalized, I want to take a look at that position and see if that's something, as much as I'd love to have that position, if that's something we really need to do in 25. I know that we need to cut down some of these expenses. This is just the first cut. I do know that number, we need to move that number down. And it's one of the things that, we can survive in 25 to what we had. Well, I would have loved to have it. After putting the numbers together and seeing where we're at, I'm not sure that's the fiscally responsible thing to do. So, but anyway, that number for that person is lumped in with myself and Alex, and that will come out of there. And with Dave, we put in Shell with Dave. Since she does basically 95% of the permit work. And the thought behind that is, and I know there's different schools of thought, within the general fund, it doesn't really affect the bottom line if you put like 10% into admin, or it kind of keeps it the same. It's when you try and bill across funds. And here we don't have that case where all the salaries are paid within the fund, that their specific fund. In the town I managed before, we had a sewer fund and a refuse fund. And we would bill people's salaries across those funds. And we don't do that here, so it really doesn't have any really bottom line impact by just shifting the people around. That is, bear with me one second, it's 414, I believe. 13 and 14.
Four.
Yeah, 414, 140 would be zoning personnel. That would be Dave and Shell. So we tried to do that. And as we're going to go through now after today and start really fine tuning the expense numbers. And again, we'll get the September 30 report shortly. What is today? 13 days. And we'll have an idea where we're at through 3/4 of the year. And what we're going to do is we will change the line item that says 2024 actual to 2024 projected. Because I want to give you an end of year number. This is where we think we'll be at the end of the year, where we're at. I just wanted to show you where we were at this point in time, but that number is going to become a projected number. And we'll show you where we think we're going to end the year. I know I jump around a lot. In capital for admin, we're basically looking at the ceiling. We did receive the air quality reports last week. Yesterday I talked with Craig and Scott. And I asked Scott, this could be considered an emergency repair? And he said yes. So we don't have to go out to bid to do anything. Craig provided me a name late yesterday afternoon of a company that does this. I want to get together with Ryan today. I forward him the email, and we're going to talk about, what we want to try and accomplish. But the goal is we got to have the system cleaned. And while we can't get all these tiles, my thought is we will try and the public areas will try to keep all looking the same. And the office areas will basically cannibalize and take tiles out if they fit and put them into the public areas. And in the office areas, we'll have non-matching tiles in the roof if we can't get them all to look alike. For a temporary solution. I don't want holes in the roof, but I'd rather get it looking good and clean the system and do what we need to do. But we are moving forward with that, and we'll have a better idea a little later in the week how we're going to proceed.
So you can give us an update next week.
Yes, you'll have an update Monday at the board meeting. We'll probably talk about that in executives. No, we can talk about it here. It doesn't matter. The website design, we all know that we're moving forward with that. The cost will basically fall in 2025. And it's an estimate. Website designs, I've been involved before. We're in the 20 to 25 range. That was 4 years ago. So I'm just assuming for inflation, that number is kind of slid up a little bit. So one of the things we want to do is with the budget, we want to try and be able to manage the budget a little bit better and give you a better, more understandable product. So we're going to be looking at a software package that takes our accounting system and we can drop the numbers in a little bit more seamlessly right now. It's not easy to do what we're doing right now to show it in this form is not exactly the easiest thing in the world to do. And it's not the most, how should I say? It's not the best way to do it. Like one of the things that drives me nuts is I can't have a general fund. I'd like to have general fund revenue, general fund expenditures. and then go to the next one and the next one and have, but what we're doing right now can't really produce that. We're trying to. Summary pages that show in a snapshot. We're gonna have to create those all by hand. They're not gonna be the pretty, they'll look all right, but they'll just be, we want to try and get something that is professional looking and makes our budget understandable for anybody to look at, to pick up, to go on the website and go, oh, yeah, that's good.
So is this just budget software, but this, the financial package that we were looking at during the year?
No,
So this, how will that affect that process that we were thinking of replacing the whole financial?
Kristen?
The part that is really has the deficit is the budgeting process. Our finance, and when looking at the financial package, I would get the extra bells and whistles if we went with the entire financial package. But it's the budget and looking, being able to have something where we can constantly be looking forward. And then not
Is
having
the
to play a
deficit with-
process. Because the current software requires a lot of going into Excel workbooks and then manipulating how the worksheet then has totals and such and such. And then when you're wanting to play around in your forecasting, I don't have forecasting. And then because budgeting, there's a slight difference between forecasting and budgeting because, you can go out further and
So
play
then-
around. Yes,
Stay with that.
yes,
But add this budget
yes,
and.
yes,
All pay.
yes.
No, but we will look for something
That's compatible.
that talks to it. Yeah.
No,
But
no,
we're gonna look to try and get us. Will give us a product that is easy to see, easy to understand, easy to use. And give us all the information and kind of just close that loop.
as well as being interactive with not just the finance budget, doesn't just work with the financial package. It can work with some other software that, like Tracer, for instance, that gives you a lot of the data behind a dollar. So.
The next two items basically deal with this. Upgrading technology. While we'd like to do that, question goes down to the items not listed as building. What do we end up doing? Building, I think that's a discussion for our next meeting at Keller Road Bridge. How we're gonna, what are we gonna do with those two items? With one or both, if we are, well, it will impact if we do something in this regard. Even though. We'll include it in right now. Because when you think about it, technology and furniture, no matter what we do in this, no matter what we do to this building, should be able to be transferred. So it's, keep that in, that will be kept in mind. That we're going to, yeah. I don't want to spend money twice. I only want to spend it once if I have to, and I don't like spending money. So, in our next meeting, we will talk about the Keller Road Bridge and we will talk about the building project, what if we're going to proceed down those roads. And basically just to wrap up a little bit, I lost my notes on the page to the right. There it is. On our next one, we will be sending out a revised expenditure sheet showing, once we get past 9:30, we'll send you out something in the beginning of October showing where we're at and some of the minor tweaks and everything that we're gonna make. We'll also be sending out revenue projections for the different funds, to kind of give you an idea. And then, the board's gonna have to make some decisions where we're at. I will tell you that one of the things we've done in the past is we've used fund balance to balance the budget. And while that is okay, eventually it comes back to get you. The other thing that we talked about in our finance committee meeting is at some point in time, the board's gonna have to take a look at the open space fund and say enough is enough. By the end of next year, it'll probably be close to $6 million sitting in that fund. And it's going to be, it is highly restricted what we can use that money for. It is only to be used to buy land, conservation easements, or maintain the land that you bought in that fund. It's basically, it's getting to the point where it's going to be, people will notice that you have so much money sitting there. And it's in 3 or 4 years, you'll be at $10 million just because of the natural growth. So next year, it's going to get $885,000 of revenue is going to come in through the EIT. That's a lot. And so it's something that the board will have to take a look at. It doesn't have to be done next year, but just keep in mind that you're going to have to make a decision. Do you cap that fund and stop collecting that portion of the EIT? Unfortunately, we're at our cap with the EIT of we're at 0.5, and the open space is 0.125. But I'd love to have that $885,000 go into the general fund, but we can't. So it's just something that we're going to have to take a look at. Just keep it on your radar.
I wanted to bring up, I know that recently the state legislature raised the cap on the EMS and the fire tax.
Right.
And I would like to take a look at that. In our township to see what that would look like if we looked at and voted to raise that tax.
To see if our emergency services need that.
Well, there's no doubt they
They
need
need
it.
it.
They need it
Yeah.
badly.
Crisis.
So, so I would like to see what that would mean for like the average. What kind of millage we're talking about, and only for the emergency services tax, and what that would look like on the average household.
But right now, we're at 14.5 mils total for everybody. And the average homeowner pays about $450 a year in real estate taxes. So you do the math, 1 mil to the average homeowner is $30.
I think when we raised it 1.5 mils 2 years ago, or whatever it was about.
Right. I will tell you, though,
And
we'll probably need, at some point, we're gonna need to raise the general fund millage. If they do anything with the building. So they're all things that are in front of you, so it all needs to be balanced. I know that, we'll take a look at everything.
Yeah,
So,
because that is a good, a major concern of mine. I know that they're.
Yeah.
Just as we have to provide police.
Oh, I know.
And I think the fire company is in better shape. EMS.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't heard from EMS for.
And
We can get them in.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
we have one more. On.
Yeah,
That,
So we should give them all of them. Is that where they stand in their financial projections?
that's all we have today.
John, what is our poll at the moment?
Well, it's hard to tell because I'm not, we haven't really closed, but
We haven't compared to what
our revenues are, right?
At the moment.
And right now.
So expenditures showing this year's expenditure budget is basically about $280,000 more than last year. Now I'm talking only in the general fund. That includes the contracted raises for the police department. That includes the 7% for the health benefits. That includes the new person. That includes Ryan's asked for, that's a big ticket item, sorry, Ryan. That includes Ryan's thing. So, we're not that much different than last year. When you, in the grand scheme of things, $280,000 on a $7.3 million budget is not exactly huge. But the key is what the revenue number is gonna be. And I really want to drill that down and make sure we understand that. After the third, yeah. Yeah, we should be getting an update from Keystone in October, what to anticipate for EIT collection. Right now, they're projecting 4.1 total between the two funds. But it looks like it was tracking a little bit ahead of that. Now, last year you budgeted more than that, 4.1. You budgeted 4.3, all in. No, so we've got to take a look at that to see what that number is going to be. Our revenues, we're on track with earned income tax. We're on track with real estate tax. We're on track with transfers. Building permits were ahead of where we should be for the year. Not where we should be, but if it projects out to the end of the year. So our revenues, and there are four biggest streams of revenue is EIT, real estate tax, transfer, and building permits. There are four major ones. Some of the other larger ones are pass-throughs, like the volunteer fireman's relief, whatever number you get, you send out. Same with the pension number. Whatever you get in from the state goes out. So they're neutral. But the big ones, there are four biggest revenue sources for the general fund. So we'll know better probably in the next 3 weeks. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
In public comment? I see none. Announcement for today is tomorrow is our Veterans Affairs Committee. They will be doing their final preparations for the Fall Fest, which is on Saturday. Yes. We have our zoning hearing board meeting scheduled for Thursday, but I think it is cancelled.
Yes.
Our next Board of Supervisors meeting will be next Monday at 7 PM. And our next budget workshop will be October 15th at 8:30 AM. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Also, you mentioned we have Park and Rec tomorrow.
Oh, it's Park and Rec tonight.
All right. Right.
Tonight. We have Park and Rec tonight. I said Fall Fest on Saturday.
Yes, Fall Fest, 10 to 3.
10 to 3. Everyone, please come. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Stephanie, do I have a second?
Second.
Rick, Mary Beth, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.